The Communist Manifesto is a political treatise written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in 1848. The book is considered as one of the most important works in modern political science and is considered as a founding document of the communist movement. The book is divided into 4 parts and discusses the history of class struggle, the relationship between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, and the role of the Communist Party in the revolution. Part 1. Bourgeois and proletarians. The first part of the Communist Manifesto discusses the history of class struggle. Marx and Engels argue that throughout history, society has been divided into 2 classes, the oppressor and the oppressed. In the current capitalist system, the bourgeoisie, the capitalists, are the oppressors, and the proletariat, the workers, are the oppressed. The authors argue that the bourgeoisie has developed industry and commerce to such a degree that it has created a global market for goods. However, this has also led to the exploitation of the working class, who are paid less than the value they produce. Marx and Engels argue that the bourgeoisie's insatiable appetite for profit has led to the creation of a vast and growing reserve army of the unemployed. The authors argue that the proletariat will eventually become conscious of its collective interests and rise up against the bourgeoisie. Part 2. Proletarians and Communists. The second part of the Communist Manifesto discusses the relationship between the proletariat and the Communist Party. Marx and Engels argue that the Communist Party is the vanguard of the proletariat and that it exists to promote the proletarian revolution. The authors argue that the Communist Party should work to unite the working class and lead it in the struggle against the bourgeoisie. The authors argue that the Communist Party must be international in scope and must work to overthrow the bourgeoisie in every country. Marx and Engels argue that the Communist Party must use any means necessary to achieve its goals, including violence. The authors argue that the Communist Party must work to abolish private property and establish a system of collective ownership of the means of production. Part 3. Socialist and Communist Literature. The third part of the Communist Manifesto discusses the various socialist and communist movements that existed before the publication of the book. Marx and Engels argue that these movements were limited in their scope and were unable to achieve the goals of the proletariat. The authors argue that the Communist Party is different from these earlier movements because it is based on a scientific analysis of history and society. The authors also argue that the Communist Party is not a utopian movement but is based on the real-world struggles of the proletariat. Marx and Engels argue that the Communist Party is the only movement that can lead the proletariat to victory over the bourgeoisie. Part 4. Position of the Communists in relation to the various existing opposition parties. The fourth part of the Communist Manifesto discusses the relationship between the Communist Party and other political parties. Marx and Engels argue that the Communist Party is fundamentally different from other political parties because it is based on the interests of the proletariat and not on the interests of the bourgeoisie. The authors argue that the Communist Party must work to expose the limitations of other political parties and must work to unite the working class against the bourgeoisie. Marx and Engels argue that the Communist Party must be a revolutionary force that is willing to use violence to achieve its goals. Conclusion. The Communist Manifesto is a powerful critique of capitalism and a call to action for the proletariat. Marx and Engels argue that capitalism is inherently exploitative and that the only way to achieve true equality is through the overthrow of the bourgeoisie. The authors argue that the Communist Party is the only force that can lead the proletariat to victory over the bourgeoisie. The Communist Manifesto has had a profound impact on the political and intellectual history of the world. The book has inspired countless revolutions and has been the subject of much debate and analysis. Despite its flaws, the book remains a powerful call to action for those who seek to create a more just and equal society.